Yo, Benny! I don't think he's home, man. Benny, man, yo. Yo, what's up, everybody? I'm MC Savant from the Cankersaurs. You can catch me on funnyordie.com/Cankersaurs, K-A-N-K-S-O-R-Z, you know what I'm saying? But right now, it's all about Benny TV. Yo, because my boy Benny the Gagoots got his own show. And I just want to give a big shout out to Benny. And in honor of that, I'm going to do a dope-ass freestyle, man. So he's got to figure out what rhymes with Benny. 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 What rhymes with Benny? Benny. What rhymes with Benny? Benny. He's in the Serengeti. He's hunting for a Yeti and he's always on the ready. And Benny's always merry when he's eating his spaghetti. But right now he's in the desert, so his palms are kind of sweaty. His good friend Freddie, he brought him that Ben and Jerry. And Yetis, they love the Ben and Jerry. So Benny caught that Yeti and we all threw confetti. Yeah, Benny. Benny TV, baby.
Yeah, Benny TV, the show with all the hips, the haps, and the hops going on in the world of movies, television, and what's the ins and outs of Facebook.
That too.
General public of Facebook. So welcome. I bet you're wondering why we gathered you here today. Well, we're here to talk Godzilla and friends. I'm Godzilla. These are my friends. This is my father, Benny Rizzuti, also known as Benny TV. I don't know what he's doing with his hands. I think
I'm Godzilla.
He's got a condition. And then this is my good friend, one of two Godzilla experts that I know, because I don't want to talk bad of our other Godzilla expert.
Will is much more of an expert than I am, but yes, I'll take that.
I'm slightly closer with you than I am with Will. So my Godzilla expert, my Toho specialist for the evening, Mr. Kyle Nover.
Howdy.
So welcome to our Blob episode, where we're just going to talk about Steve McQueen's The Blob.
Yes.
For an hour, and we're just going to talk about how great the theme is and how it sounds like a surfer theme, like the Blob, like no, okay, so we're here to talk about Godzilla.
You know they actually still have the blob. It's just like in a bucket somewhere. Like they
they kept the
they kept
blob
the actual like clay or whatever made the blob.
I believe that.
And it's just sitting in a bucket somewhere.
I think it should be in a museum.
Should be, yeah.
That should be.
The whole town of the blob is actually a museum.
In the words of Indiana Jones, that belongs in a museum.
I agree.
It should. So we're here to talk about Godzilla. We all know Godzilla, our friend of the people of Earth, Godzilla.
Yes.
Also a huge enemy.
Also huge. Depending on the film, either great friend or the most vicious enemy, Godzilla. We have, at the end of next month, Godzilla King of the Monsters coming out, which is the second of the new Godzilla films and the third of their new Godzilla Monsterverse films, which will not culminate, but really kick off and crescendo next year when Godzilla vs. King Kong comes out.
Oh, okay.
Which comes out early next year.
And is that a Japanese production?
No, this is an American production from Warner Brothers.
Okay,
and
cool.
We'll get into that, where there is currently Japanese Godzilla films still going on and being made. Most recently is, 3 years ago?
So
3 or 4 years ago?
3 or 4 years ago they made Shin Godzilla, and they still do the anime they just made recently.
Which is on Netflix, which just went into its third anime film. So there's a lot of different Godzilla going on.
Yes.
But we're going to talk about Godzilla from the beginning to now, not super in depth, because we want to talk about other monsters in the Godzilla verse and Japanese monsters, some American monsters, all old school monsters.
Yes.
Since you're old school, I feel like that you fit right in.
That's cool. And the Blob. We're going to talk about
We're going to talk the Blob.
Okay.
We're going to talk about your good buddy, the Blob.
All right, later.
Sitting in a bucket over there.
We got him. He's in a bucket. We got him here.
He's
it
sitting
was
next to
only $12 to rent them for the day.
He's sitting next to the bucket holding the Gumby clay.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, is there anything you want to say about Godzilla as we start?
No, I'll add in as we go along.
Sounds good. So, Kyle, as the expert of Godzilla on this panel of esteemed Godzillates tonight, why don't you give us a little brief history of Toho, which is the company that created Godzilla?
So Toho was a company, they basically invested in two directors. One was Akira Kurosawa.
Yes.
I'm butchering that name, but and the other one, Eiji Tsuburaya, who would go on to make the Godzilla films.
Yes.
And they basically just had those. It was one studio, but it was just those two kind of running the ship. And post World War II, there were no war movies in Japan.
Okay, yeah, they weren't allowed to make war movies.
So they wanted to make something different, and they came up with a disaster film that would eventually become Godzilla.
Okay.
And originally, Godzilla was supposed to be a sea monster. Originally, they were supposed to do. There were supposed to be a lot of different things with how Godzilla came to be. One, he was supposed to be. It was never supposed to be a guy in a suit. It was never supposed to be that. It was always supposed to. Originally, it was supposed to be stop motion, like the original King Kong.
Okay, that makes
Okay.
a lot of sense.
Yes.
And there's a lot of similarities between King Kong and Godzilla.
Godzilla is directly influenced from King Kong. It's a direct influence, and most of the movies you can see there's direct inspiration. Wouldn't be what it is without Godzilla. Wouldn't exist without King Kong.
Yes. I would fully agree with that. And Godzilla, there was just the first Godzilla movie when it came over to the United States, or they already made a couple?
So they when the first one came to the United States, they had made two, I believe.
Okay, they
by that
already
point.
made two, so it was already, in Japan, it was already a known quantity.
Somewhat. Godzilla, at first, by the second movie, Godzilla kind of fell off. So Toho went into an experimental phase where they made monsters like Mothra, Rodan. They did the Mysterians. That was like a space flick. And they abandoned Godzilla for about almost close to a decade before they brought him back to have him fight King Kong.
Yes.
And
Yeah, I saw that one in the movies.
That one-
just to let you know.
that made the most money to this day. No Godzilla movie has surpassed the amount of money that movie made. Godzilla versus King Kong.
That's fascinating.
That is fascinating. Now, you brought up about King Kong and Godzilla. You wouldn't have Godzilla without King Kong. But they added with Godzilla, the original Godzilla breathed fire,
Of course.
which was like the coolest thing.
What made Godzilla so cool was he was made from an atomic blast essentially. So they were able to play with him in certain ways. They were able to have him breathe fire or nuclear breath, whatever it is.
Atomic breath.
Atomic breath.
That's what they call it now.
Everyone says lasers, but like now you can say laser.
You
It's
can say
weird.
lasers, but it's
For the longest time, you
atomic.
couldn't say laser.
Yeah, you couldn't say laser, but I think the official vernacular now is atomic breath.
Okay, and
He
I'll
has
go for
atomic
that.
breath.
But it's the same idea.
The
Just fire
sounds
breath.
come out when he
Fire
does
breath.
it. Yeah, when he does the breath, these sounds.
Yeah.
He emits these strange sounds.
He emits sounds all the time. That's
Right.
just how he communicates.
All right, now I want to say one thing about the original Godzilla. Now, the original Godzilla came out in 1954, actually 1 year before I was born.
Wow, you were there.
I was there for the birth of Godzilla, and my father still tried to get rid of Godzilla, but he couldn't. And that's me, 63 years later. I don't know how I got to that.
Is that what you stopped us to talk about?
No, what I want to talk about was when Godzilla, the movie that came to America, the first Godzilla, is not the same Godzilla movie that was in Japan.
It's kind of the same movie. It's most of the same footage, but they intercut footage with Raymond Burr, who was very famous at the time. He was in Rear Window, Alfred Hitchcock movie. He was also Perry Mason.
Yes.
And so they took the stories go back and forth. Some say it was a day, some say it was a week. They basically filmed him and kind of intercut the actors. They would place the Japanese actors like off camera so you couldn't see them, but they were dressed exactly the same, so they would cut them into the movie. They just cut Raymond Burr into the movie to just explain, hey, yeah, so there's a giant monster up there and we need to basically do all this. He was acting as an American news reporter, but it has a charm to it. It has its own charm to it. The original is a gold standard, as most fans would agree, but when it first came to America, King of the Monsters is what it was originally called, Godzilla King of the Monsters. It had a charm to it. I think having Raymond Burr really, I think it helped make it a success for American audiences.
Even for me, because as I got older and I was like, wow, I didn't remember Raymond Burr was in it. And I watched it and I could see what you said, that he was cut into it, but I could see he was explaining it to the American audience.
Yeah.
So that's why I brought that up.
It was very smart that they did that, and they would capitalize on that years and years later when they wanted to reboot the franchise, and they were like, "We have Raymond Burr; he's still here." So they rebooted the franchise, called it a sequel to the original, and had his character come back and be like, "Oh, this is the guy who beat Godzilla, even though he didn't. He was just a news reporter.
He was just a news
literally
reporter.
just a news
He
reporter.
did
He was there.
nothing.
He did nothing of value to destroy Godzilla and stop him."
Now, in
on
that
the warpath.
movie, though, where they brought Raymond Burr back, he interacted this time with the actors?
They did the same sort of deal where they filmed more American scenes, and they changed a lot with that one as well. It involved a lot of it was around the Cold War, so there were missiles going off, and they changed where it was going. Like, they changed the actual destination in the American version to just cause tension in the Cold War had everyone's head on fire at the time.
I just find it so funny. They went from adding in scenes to make it more for an American audience to now to the point that they make 2 different movies for both audiences.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. The evolution of Godzilla is unlike almost any other film franchise.
Yeah. They didn't do that for a whole lot of them. They immediately realized, like, cut that off. Like, stop that.
Yeah, we got to stop doing that.
They did it for King Kong vs. Godzilla, and then they were like, yeah, stop that.
Yeah,
That's
and then
annoying.
they stopped doing that, and there's been pretty much ever since they would just do dubs.
Pretty much.
They would just do dub versions,
Right.
or they would have one American actor
Yeah.
or two. Because I remember in the '90s versions there was like 1 or 2 American actors.
Yeah,
in
and they would
the
actually
films.
more times than not they would actually speak English.
Yeah.
In the '70s, Nick Adams was in a couple of Toho movies because they would make more and more monster movies, and he would be in the movies speaking full English to his Japanese cast, who's also speaking Japanese. So it's and that's how they would present the movie. Like, if you watch like the original DVD version, like, that's how they present the movie.
That's pretty funny.
Sometimes they would actually overdub him,
That's
which
hilarious.
is even weirder.
They've done that in other movies. Like, they've done that in. They did that most recently in the Raid films. There's parts in Raid 2 where they're speaking English and they overdub them. Anyway, they don't keep in them speaking in English. I guess just for consistency's sake.
And all the Godzilla movies, like they actually do that.
Yeah,
Like,
I guess just for consistency's sake they do that.
And
Like,
I know a director who did that, an Italian director, and it's he wanted his actors to be comfortable.
Yeah.
So he did an international cast with French and Italian and American, and he let them speak they all read the script, but they spoke in their own tongue to be comfortable, and then he dubbed it in 3 different languages. He dubbed it in Italian, English, and French.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
I've heard of a couple films that.
yeah, no, there's a couple. A lot of them I can think of are spaghetti westerns.
And the
such,
one
so-
I'm talking about is Bernardo Bertolucci, and the film is called 1900, with Robert De Niro, Burt Lancaster,
Yes.
Gerard Depardieu,
Yes.
and he speaks French in it, but they dub all of them.
When does Godzilla come in?
Godzilla was in Japan at the time, and he stopped in Europe for some wine and went back.
Oh, makes sense.
Okay.
He had a good time. That's good.
I just wanted to bring up that you brought that up and that's a very interesting concept of filmmaking
Yeah,
that they did with the Godzilla films.
It is definitely interesting. I don't know if it was so much of an artistic choice, especially overdubbing the American actors. I couldn't tell you why they would want to do that.
I think it was like for consistency's sake, sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think they were like, you know what? We have that voice actor on the payroll.
Might as well
do-
just have him do it.
Hey, can you speak that? Cool.
But I think it also has to do with the fact that like the sound would sound different coming from his voice than the other characters because they were all recorded in a sound booth.
That's a good point.
So I think that could be a reason for it. Why they didn't just bring him in to do the dubbing for his own voice, I can't answer those questions.
I don't think any of us can.
But Godzilla is a very fascinating franchise, so I like talking about it. Is there anything else you want to talk about with Godzilla right now?
No, keep talking.
You watching Godzilla or?
I watched it, and when I was young, he scared the heck out of me. And then as I got older, my friends and I enjoyed Godzilla because we saw it on a different level. We saw it where sometimes it was so bad and so campy that it was great.
You're looking
Yeah.
at a guy in a costume running around.
Yeah, exactly.
We even went to a movie. My friends and I went to a movie that was supposed to be great, critically acclaimed, and it was so bad. And in the same theater, when we were leaving, we said, "Why didn't we see Godzilla versus Megalon?" Because we knew that would have been interesting. And what we loved about it was in the trailer, it said, "And introducing Rocket Man," right?
Jet Jaguar.
Jet Man, yeah. So they said, "And introducing him." So my friend's like, "Why didn't we go see that? We would have had so much fun." And they even said, "Introducing this robot guy." And that's the one thing, these movies never disappoint me. They don't. But Rodan, as you mentioned earlier, Rodan scared the hell out of me as a kid.
Rodan scared you?
Oh, it did as a kid. I think if I could watch it there. But some of the Mothra and the little girls in the cage, and that's something with Godzilla that came on later, that why do they like putting kids in the movies? They like having these kids who get into trouble and or they become friends with Godzilla.
They tried that once, and it was a huge flop. But then there was another franchise, Gamera, which was a very
was big on
very
that,
kid-friendly movie. But later on, they did introduce more like kids, I guess, as characters in Godzilla movies. I think that was just to make things different, kind of have a different perspective on looking at Godzilla.
All right.
I think that's the only reason.
As I said, when I was young, I really took them seriously, and now I could sit back and watch a Godzilla movie, a Japanese Godzilla movie, and say, "Wow, this is awesome."
One of the things I think, the connection I always see recently with the Godzilla movies, the reaction like you and your friends had to Godzilla is like what we have with like superhero movies.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were the superhero movies of its heyday, which was probably the 70s and the 80s and the 90s were really the heyday of Godzilla, but even the 60s was really popular time because that was when Destroy All Monsters and everything came out, and that's probably like the height. And then the 80s came and they redid it again. Mm-hmm. And that's when you have like, because I believe this one is modeled after the 80s to 90s.
Yeah, it's a
Godzilla.
little bit like that one, yeah.
He's a little more brolic.
Yeah.
Because this is my brolic Godzilla. But I've had this since I was like 6 years old.
Oh, okay.
So this was made in like 98, 99. Yeah, I think it used to shoot things out. I don't know.
No,
it's a fun guy.
Batteries go back there.
Oh, okay.
and it used
He
to
lights
make-
up and he makes
lights
noises.
Up, his eyes lit up, and he makes sounds.
He makes noises, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we got this little guy, which is also, I think, the same time period.
Well, this is actually from
This is
2004.
Oh, this is the 2004. This is the Final Wars.
Yes.
Godzilla Final Wars, which was
That's-
for 10 years the last Godzilla film.
Yeah, for about
10 years until America redid it with the Gareth Edwards Godzilla film, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. I know you haven't been able to really sit through it,
No, I haven't.
which
really
isn't
been-
your fault.
Yeah, it's not.
But all right, and just briefly, the one that was done by Roland Emmerich and
Roland Emmerich, I was
Yeah.
watching it today. It's on Netflix.
that was a big disappointment to me, and it was.
Especially coming from the director of Independence Day, you
Right.
thought, who can do a disaster movie like kind of to the akin or the tone of the original like Godzilla or even the 80s Godzilla, and boy, that movie is just a mess. I know you defend it.
I defend it because as a monster movie, it's fun. As a Godzilla movie, it's not a Godzilla.
It's not a Godzilla movie.
It's not
As a
Godzilla.
monster movie, it's fun.
It's-
It is what it is.
It's kind of a generic 90s
Exactly.
monster movie.
But that's
But it's not a Godzilla.
That's what I enjoy.
It's not a Godzilla movie.
No.
It was a Jurassic Park ripoff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
It was a radioactive Jurassic Park ripoff.
It was a Jurassic Park ripoff. It came out right around the time as Lost World.
Yes.
And it felt like a lot of similarities between that and Lost World, I feel like.
Then they had the fake Siskel and Ebert for no reason.
Oh, yeah, they have that. I mean, Hank Azaria is the best part of that.
Hank Azarian's
Yeah,
great.
Hank Azarian's
Hank Azarian holding the camera, getting stomped by Godzilla, or whatever it
From
is.
what I remember, that movie was sold on that shot and the shot of the guy at the dock with the fishing.
Yeah.
And then Godzilla comes, he destroys the dock. That was like what sold the movie.
Yes,
Were those
exactly.
two scenes. Like that people like, I gotta see Godzilla. Kind of like the new Godzilla was sold off the scene of all of the stealth fighter pilot guys gliding around Godzilla. And that was because it showed the scale, that he's like the size of a skyscraper.
Right.
So like it's those things that like larger than life things that really sell it, which is another thing where I feel like it is like a big monster movie and everything, but in its heyday was almost akin to like watching Iron Man or watching Thor or something.
I would
like it
say
had the
that.
same sort of feel behind it.
And because there's so many of them, it's like, pick and choose. Like Godzilla
Exactly.
versus who this week?
And you
Who's
know
Godzilla
you're going
fighting?
to be entertained if you leave all your logic behind and just sit.
Yeah, it's just a
Exactly.
fun movie.
If you want to get entertained, that's
You can't look at these movies seriously at all.
No.
You have to throw logic out the window, sit back, relax, and just watch two dudes in rubber suits beat the crap out of one
And
another.
that's why it's fun. So we're going to show a trailer from a Godzilla film.
Mm-hmm.
Might be your favorite.
I think it is.
We'll let you know. We'll be right back.
The great Godzilla, blazing a trail of terror to his Japanese homeland.
Captain, water in the conning tower. Godzilla!
Roaring defiance to the only enemy on Earth strong enough to challenge him. The unconquerable King Kong, giant gorilla god of this South Seas paradise, where sensuous maidens offer themselves in ritual sacrifice to his brute embrace.
Godzilla has a brain about this size. He is sheer brute force. While Kong is a thinking animal. His brain is considerably larger, about 10 times the size of this gorilla's skull. Being instinctive rivals, there is no doubt that they will attempt to destroy one another.
King Kong versus Godzilla, heading for their colossal collision, shattering every obstacle that stands between them in the most fantastic rampage of annihilation ever recorded on film. See King Kong stamp Tokyo into the ground, holding a beautiful girl in his grasp. See Godzilla destroy an entire army. See King Kong trapped by the blazing barrier of 1 billion volts. But nothing, nobody can stop the great showdown when King Kong and Godzilla meet to fight for survival of the fittest.
They make it look really cool.
It's the best movie ever made.
I know, and that comes out next year, 2020.
It's already
I can't
out.
wait.
Alexander Skarsgård.
I'm going to go wait online now.
Yeah, I'm going with you. They're gonna be like, the other one comes out at the end of the next month. No, I'm waiting
No,
for the other one.
waiting for this
No,
one.
I'm not. I don't care. But so you were talking about some interesting stuff about King Kong vs. Godzilla because you might like that movie.
Yeah, that's kind of my favorite movie ever made.
Ah, makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So what do you have to say about it? You were talking about before during the break.
That movie is just ridiculous. Well, before I delve into that, the movie is just ridiculous. It's definitely, like I said, my favorite. It's so funny sometimes at certain points because it's just like King Kong is just drinking this berry juice, getting drunk, just like, and the people of his island just dance and they try and recreate the original King Kong, and it's just very strange. And then they carry him out on balloons to fight Godzilla on Mount Fuji or something. I swear
Like one does. Like one does.
this movie's gonna be great when it comes out. But originally it was the project was meant to involve Frankenstein before they were making the movie. Very nice transition.
Yeah.
I know.
So how did they go from Frankenstein versus Godzilla to Godzilla versus King Kong?
So what happened was in the 50s and 60s they wanted to make a new King Kong movie. Willis O'Brien, the original animator, he wanted to make a stop-motion movie where King Kong fights a Frankenstein monster. That got tossed around through producers, eventually got to Toho, and they were like, what if we did Godzilla versus a Frankenstein monster? Same idea, but Instead of Kong, it would have been a Frankenstein, or it would have been Godzilla. And then they just said, I guess, King Kong versus Godzilla would sell a lot better.
I mean, probably. I feel like Godzilla or King Kong versus Frankenstein wouldn't really work. It wouldn't.
No, it wouldn't work. And I know it sounds strange that I'm saying that it wouldn't make sense because we're talking about
Because Frankenstein would have
creatures
to, because it would be Dr. Frankenstein making a Godzilla-sized monster,
Yeah.
and that would take.
How is Frankenstein where you could say, wow, King Kong is the hugest gorilla and he's the king,
So he's
right?
gonna make a gorilla-sized Frankenstein monster?
No,
It's
no.
just
So no, what I'm saying is, King Kong is big, so why not have King Kong fight Godzilla? Because they
Yeah.
both. Doesn't that make a lot more sense? And
I don't know. I think that him making a Frankenstein Godzilla makes a lot more sense. I don't know.
But they didn't abandon the idea. A few years after this movie, after King Kong vs. Godzilla, they would make Frankenstein Conquers the World.
Yes.
I think it was called in America, and it was basically what like a monster that kind of would just grow. It was like it was like a brain
Toho-made
it was a
Frankenstein.
Toho-made Frankenstein movie where like in World War II there was a heart in a box that grew into a person that couldn't stop growing.
Makes sense. Sounds like one of the best films ever made.
And they made a sequel.
Ooh.
That one was really fun.
Who was in that? Johnny Depp?
I think that was the one with Nick Adams that I was talking about before.
Oh, damn,
yeah?
Nick Adams.
So close.
That Nick Adams, he's everywhere.
the Japanese have like the coolest warped sense of writing because with all their science fiction, their anime, they're like off on a different plane, and for them to do these monster movies has turned out to be awesome because in America we've already seen what America does with Godzilla, where they are no way as entertaining as the Japanese are with Godzilla.
We truly we can't touch them.
We can't touch them.
No.
They're so different, the American Godzillas to the Japanese Godzillas. Like even you look at the new Shin Godzilla, he's like a mutant. He like has different forms. He's like a worm monster.
And his
like,
tail is alive.
His tail is alive. He's like made of like different people. through,
Yeah,
like,
he's made of
nuclear-
like Godzilla people.
Yeah, there's like Godzilla people that make him. They go even crazier now because there is
he
another
can
Godzilla.
unhinge his
so-
jaw. He can shoot
Yeah.
lasers from his dorsal fins. And
So
stuff.
they're like, we can just do whatever we want, and that's getting a sequel that's coming out soon.
I don't know.
They keep talking about it.
Last I heard, I don't think they want to do a sequel, but I think they just want to do another Godzilla movie.
Okay.
I don't think they want to do of that. I think they just want to make more Godzilla movies of
We'll
their own.
see another Godzilla movie.
Godzilla is pretty much like the Japanese James Bond.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
He's
very
a franchise
similar,
like that.
Very
About
similar.
the same amount of movies.
Actually, I'm pretty sure Godzilla has like double.
Man,
Probably.
They're at like Bond 25,
Yeah.
and they're at like Godzilla 50.
I think Godzilla, when I read 35 films, but I guess that's just the Japanese. 30.
No, that's probably accurate. With everything all together, if we include the anime,
Yeah.
and we include the remakes and all that.
And then if you count all the other Godzilla universe stuff, it's probably more.
Exactly. Like there's
That's
so
what
much other stuff.
Because Mothra's technically in the universe. And
Yeah, then that's even
stuff,
more.
So that's even Rodan.
Gamera.
Well, Gamera's not part of the Godzilla universe.
Yeah,
he's not?
Yeah,
That's a
he's-
different company. That was a rival. I don't know the name of that company.
It was a rival company, Toei. Like it was.
Okay, yeah, Toei.
It's the company that made Battle Royale.
Yes.
If you've ever seen that. It's same production company.
And they're still in business, or
Yeah, as far as I know.
yeah, and that's where Gamera comes from. And then the
okay.
other big Japanese, he's not a monster, but he fights monsters. Is Ultraman, which isn't Toho or Toei either, right?
I think it's Toei.
That's Toei also.
I believe it is.
That makes sense. So those are the three biggest iconography of monsters in Japan would be Godzilla, Gamera, and Ultraman,
And Ultraman.
which just got a Netflix anime.
Oh, that would be
So
cool.
they are bringing Ultraman back in a version.
Yes.
But that's something I don't think they've ever been able to crack as an American film because they've tried.
Yeah, it's a little difficult for like the mass American audience to really get Ultraman. Ultraman's really cool if you can get into it. It's super fun. It's like Power Rangers. It's like Godzilla.
But it's kind of ridiculous.
But like,
Yeah.
but you could binge it. Like it's so much easier
They
sometimes.
need a Raymond Burr to come back.
Yeah,
that's
they,
what-
That's what they need.
they need Ultraman to take his mask off and explain what's going on.
And he's Raymond Burr.
They get a hologram.
Yeah, Raymond Burr in a hologram.
Raymond Burr and a
Oh, no,
hologram.
I
That
just
sounds good.
want to interject and ask you, Godzilla, the Planet Eater, 2018.
That's the anime.
That's the anime.
That's
Yeah.
the anime. It's on Netflix. There's 3
Because-
anime films now.
Yeah.
Right? I haven't watched any of them.
Neither of
The title
neither have I,
alone
but
makes me want to watch Godzilla, the Planet Eater.
It's interesting. It's a lot more about the people that are trying to fight Godzilla.
And it takes
on
place
that-
in the future. It takes
Yeah.
place like 400 years.
Yeah,
in
it's
the
something
future,
crazy,
something like
like-
that. Which
But
they've
it-
done before. They have done in live action. I think some of the '90s ones were.
They travel.
future-
They have people from the future come back,
come
travel back
yeah,
in time.
to try to save the world using Godzilla, and that's kind of. Well, no, the '60s is when Godzilla kind of became our hero, but then the '90s again is when Godzilla kind of became the hero of the people. And Final Wars, which we talked about before, which was the 2004, which was the last one for 10 years, he fought every enemy he ever had, and like
Almost every.
almost
like,
every enemy.
So many.
And in that film, he fights the '98 Roland Emmerich Godzilla.
Oh, that's
He
cool.
destroys them.
And
in a
the
second.
fight lasts like 30 seconds.
That's great.
He like blows him into the Sydney, Australia theater.
He just
and,
whacks him with his tail.
Yeah, and he
That's it.
whacks him
It's-
with
it's
his
over.
tail. And the villain's like, that was disappointing.
And some 41's playing in the background.
It's ridiculous.
Well, because they built up that one to make everyone think that we're finally going to have an American Godzilla.
And it's gonna be
that's
cool,
gonna
it's gonna be-
They withheld what he looked like, and they did. And I remember you just saw
The
getting
leg,
glimpses of
and
yeah, and then you were wondering, is he breathing fire? Because I took Ryan was like 5 or 6 years old, and I took 2 of his friends. So the one older friend and I, we were like, we hope he breathes. And there's a scene in the beginning when he first goes on the rampage, where he breathes by a truck.
And
that's
then it
on fire.
explodes, and then like.
And so we're thinking, wow, he's breathing, and then you were let down.
Yeah, he didn't actually do it like the
He
rest
didn't
of the
actually
movie.
do that. A lot of the buildings that blew up wasn't because of him. It was
Yeah.
because of the ineptitude of the armed forces.
Well, why are you? I'm going to fly around in Manhattan through buildings chasing a lizard monster. None of that makes sense.
Neither did him jumping through that one building.
None of that movie
Was that the MetLife building?
I think he might jump.
Yeah.
Where had the big hole in the center where it didn't make sense at all. He just jumped through it.
That movie was terrible. That's
This is
all
the
I have
biggest
to say.
thing. So I'm casting my Godzilla movie. I need a lead that people are going to get behind.
Ferris
They're really
Bueller.
gonna- Ferris Bueller. Like
And Mo from The Simpsons.
and Mo from The Simpsons and Leon the Professional.
Yeah.
Yeah, Leon.
None
from
of
The
it really
Professional.
makes that sense. But I do want to talk about the 2014 Godzilla, but I want to touch on some of the other Godzilla monsters.
Yeah.
So, what was the first non-Godzilla monster? Mothra?
Rodan.
Rodan. Okay, so Rodan, which scared you
Yes.
to this day.
To this day, I'm still petrified to watch.
You're terrified of your buddy Rodan. So they did Rodan, Mothra, and King Ghidorah were the first big 3, and they're still the most popular.
They did they had another one, The Mysterians, like I said
Okay,
before.
yeah.
That's kind of a monster movie. I need to rewatch that one, but they have their own costumes and it has its own following. Like it has a space amoeba that like they show would later on in Godzilla movies like would have clips and cameos here or there. But after Mothra, they made King Kong vs. Godzilla and it was a huge hit and they realized they needed to bring Godzilla back. So then they had him fight Godzilla versus Mothra. In America, they would call it Godzilla versus the Thing.
Mm-hmm.
And later that year, they would make Ghidorah, the 3-headed monster,
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
which would have all of those monsters, Godzilla,
Yes.
Rodan, and Mothra fighting Ghidorah for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And with Ghidorah, interesting backstory. Originally, he was the 3-headed dragon.
Yes.
He was originally supposed to have 8 heads.
So how did that come about? Were they?
I couldn't tell you what. It must have just been a sketch that they were like, hey, let's just do this. And, basically Ghidorah's a giant puppet
Yeah.
that they
Yeah, and
control.
each head was ran individually.
Yeah, and it's still, but it is still a costume. There is a guy that gets in it
Yeah.
and like will control 2 of the heads and whatnot. But and he was also supposed to have a rainbow wings instead of like gold wings. I read that.
They had some really interesting ideas that I'm really happy they didn't go with.
Yeah.
Well, they were probably too elaborate once you get to.
The 8 heads would have been
Yeah.
too
Yeah,
crazy.
the 8 heads would have been.
That
too
seventh head they weren't sold on, but that 8th head they really wanted that one.
Yeah. 6 heads? No. 8 or 3. That's it. That's your only choice.
And it takes 8 people to operate Ghidorah, like the original costume
so-
and the puppet,
An 8-headed Ghidorah would have taken like 20 people to operate.
on top of operating possibly at the same time Rodan and a flying Mothra.
Which probably took like 3 or 4 people to control.
Yeah, just about.
And then you had, so they each had their own individual movie, then they teamed up. You know, one of the first Avengers type films.
Basically, yeah. It was like the first kind of monster clash.
Now, King Kong did King Kong ever fight any of the other monsters other than Godzilla? Because King Kong, I know King Kong had his own Toho series.
So he was supposed to have more movies. They only made one after King Kong vs. Godzilla. They had him fight Gorosaurus, which he was kind of in a Godzilla. He was actually in Destroy All Monsters.
Okay, so he was there.
So technically, yeah, he was. He did fight other Godzilla monsters, and another monster he fought in there was Mechanic Kong, which is the robot King Kong.
Yes.
Yes, I saw that one.
And that movie was based on an animated Japanese show that Toho made way back when. So I guess maybe he may have fought more monsters theoretically on there.
That's pretty funny.
But like the whole movie was just based on this one show, and they were like, yeah, just throw Robot Kong in there. And the main villain's name is Doctor Who. It's not
No relation.
no relation to the Doctor.
That's pretty funny. So that's pretty funny that they did that. But no, they should have. I think that's something that's missing that I think they will do after Godzilla vs. King Kong if it's successful, of having King Kong fight Mothra and Rodan.
I think that would be
and
interesting.
King Ghidorah, and like that would just stuff like that. There is talk in the newest trailer for Godzilla King of Monsters, which is the name of the new one.
Right.
There's 17 monsters in this movie, but they're really only talking about Godzilla, Mothra, Rodan, and King Ghidorah. So we don't know what's going on with the other, 12, 13 monsters that there are. So that's going to be interesting. Maybe they'll just show different monsters. We've also talked about possibly being multiple of the same, like more than one Mothra, more than one
cool.
Rodan.
Yeah.
They've always had more than one Mothra dies like
Well,
every 2
Mothra
minutes.
dies and he comes back, so maybe they'll just start with more than one Mothra.
Exactly. That's something that they can do. They could have like a bunch of worms just kind of going around Tokyo Bay, and
And
they're like,
Rodan does have babies in Rodan?
yeah, there's more
eggs
than
in it.
there's more than one Rodan.
Because I
technically.
remember that scared me, the eggs too. I don't know
Yeah.
why, but
Rodan freaked
young.
you out.
I was young.
All right, well, we got to get you an ice pop because Rodan scared you. We're going to show another trailer. It actually isn't a trailer. This is just, it was hard to find Godzilla trailers, so I found a collection of TV spots for the 1985 Godzilla film. So we're going to show those right now. We'll be right back.
30 years ago, he thought it was over.
Troops, aircraft, rockets. They were all used before.
Now, your favorite fire-breathing monster is back, like you've never seen him before. The legend is reborn in the all-new Godzilla 1985, starring Raymond Burr. Godzilla 1985, rated PG. 30 years ago, he helped save mankind. He thought the horror was over.
They never found any corpse.
Prepare yourself. Your favorite fire-breathing monster is back, like you've never seen him before. The legend is reborn in the all-new Godzilla 1985, starring Raymond Burr. Godzilla 1985, rated PG. An ageless force of destruction has been awakened.
30 years ago, they never found any corpse.
Space-age weapons are useless. Escape is impossible. Godzilla 1985, starring Raymond Burr.
Godzilla will live.
The legend is reborn in the all-new Godzilla 1985. Rated PG. For 30 years, he has been resting. Now he's back, and he's going to make up for lost time. All new power, brand new destruction. Godzilla, 1985, starring Raymond Burr. The legend is reborn in the all-new Godzilla, 1985, rated PG. New power. Brand new destruction. Prepare yourself. Your favorite fire-breathing monster is back like you've never seen him before. Godzilla, 1985, starring Raymond Burr. The legend is reborn in the all-new Godzilla, 1985, rated PG.
So that movie came out in 1985.
Wow, I would have never been able to tell that Godzilla 1985 came out in 1985.
Pretty incredible. Technology, man.
So you were saying that the kid in the last promo was added in for a plot point purpose.
Not necessarily a plot point purpose, but it actually is a plot point purpose. It's more or less for marketing purposes. Because they were like, yeah, let's sell Godzilla toys. And that became a thing after this movie, where every Godzilla movie thereafter would have a Godzilla toy or a dinosaur toy somewhere hidden in the movie, and it would just, I don't know. It's one of those little things that you
merchandising.
Exactly.
Merchandising.
Look, Godzilla's a toy. You can buy him.
Godzilla the towel. Godzilla the flamethrower.
The kids love this.
Kids love this one. So we have a couple of photos here. This one is of the first Godzilla movie with Raymond Burr. Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Then we have a poster of my dad's favorite movie of all time, The Blob.
And Bernard Hammerth was asking about this, so I just have to say
because we mentioned it before.
And he wanted, so Bernard here, this is for you, The Blob.
The only reason, Bernard, is because you said The Blob. My dad needed to get this on. He left the show for 2 minutes, and he found that on the internet.
I found that on the internet.
And then my dad's other favorite movie of all time.
This movie here. What I like about this movie, and it's campy as heck, it takes place in Sicily, and is a spaceship which was an American exploration of Venus, crash lands in the Mediterranean Sea, and some Sicilian fishermen find it, and there is a special tube in it. So it crashes a tube which has this alien creature, this beast. From this beast, which is a Ray Harryhausen beast. So, you know, it's the one, the stop-action claymation thing. And this little Sicilian boy finds it, and there's this doctor, this like veterinarian who he sells things to all the time. So he sells a tube, and it's a little creature about the size of the Godzilla here that keeps getting larger and larger and larger, and then it just turns into a typical battle and everything, and it's the dumbest movie in the world, but I've watched it on those campy shows that show horror movies, like Mystery Science Theater.
Yeah, and like Elvira.
And Svengoolie
and
Elvira, yeah. And I've seen it.
Shirt.
I've seen it on Svengoolie a couple of times, that movie. And it's goofy. It's very goofy, but it's a Ray Harryhausen. So, you know, Ray Harryhausen, you got to give him a little credit.
I got to check that out. Because a space movie with Ray Harryhausen sounds incredible. And
in Sicily.
Yeah, I was going to say, too, in Italy.
There's American and Italian. The little Italiano boy, I don't remember what his name is.
Alterno Barucci, Ducci, Dabada.
Yeah, Barucci. Hey, little Barucci.
Hey, Commandant.
I can't pretend to do.
Don't get me
Well, no, you're not Italian.
Exactly, I'm not allowed.
You're not allowed. Your last name's not
I'll go to jail.
You will go. I will bring you to jail.
Get him a hero.
There's ex-cops in the next room. They will take you away.
For what? What did he do? Oh, because he can't do it if he doesn't.
If he doesn't Italian accent. Do you
my-
watch the show?
My palm, it just can't.
And there, no, I
Do you watch the show? You're on it.
They're Italian cops, so.
Yeah, they're gonna.
They'll take me out back.
We're gonna take you out back. All right, so pretty much done with Godzilla. I just wanted to touch on the 2014 Godzilla.
Yeah.
Because we pretty much talked about everything else.
Right.
As quick as we could. We could go more in depth with stuff, but we don't have the time, unfortunately. But I did want to talk about the 2014 Godzilla because everyone was so excited for that movie.
Yes.
And I think for a while we were kind of like in denial that it was like amazing.
Yeah, I'd say so.
It's not a bad movie.
It isn't.
But Gareth
It's
Evans.
better than Roland Emmerich's. I will.
Right.
Yes. What the
on a
director
default platform.
What the director was trying to do was he was trying to create an old school horror movie or old school monster movie where you don't really see the monster a lot, kind of akin to Jaws or earlier monster films where
A lot of Godzilla movies do that.
A lot
where
of
it's
Godzilla
of
movies.
just, exposition and not really a whole lot of monster action, but
and there's only 20 minutes of Godzilla in the 2-hour film.
yeah. If the movie was shorter, maybe that'd be a little bit more acceptable, but maybe throw in, a couple more scenes with Godzilla.
It's a 2-hour movie. There is 2 other monsters, but they're not monsters anyone knows. They were made for the movie, the Muto monsters.
Yeah, they're very they're very much paperweight, made to come and go.
They're paperweight. A lot of the action scenes are very dark.
Yeah,
So when you
for whatever
rewatch
reason,
them, they don't have the same feel they did in a theater.
Yeah, for whatever reason, that movie it was incredibly dark. Even when they released it on DVD and
Yeah,
Blu-ray,
on
that was
Blu-ray, you watch it
humongous
now,
complaint.
it's so dark. It's just very dark.
Now, if you're making a film like that dark, then there are certain details you don't have to worry about. Of
course.
Too.
Which might have been a reason for why they did it, but it was a big budget movie and it did very well.
And Godzilla looked good. He didn't look bad.
No, Godzilla looked great. That was one of the best parts of it was Godzilla and the way they portrayed him and the way they portrayed Monarch and the whole thing that they want Godzilla to be our friend kind of, and that's more of the stuff they're doing with the new Godzilla King of the Monsters.
Right.
Where the trailer is them trying to convince the government that we want to be Godzilla's pet. Because it's, you want Godzilla to be our pet? It's like, no, we would be his pet.
Yeah. I saw that trailer. The trailer looks good.
Yeah, because King Ghidorah is coming, and all the monsters will go to Ghidorah, and they need Godzilla to fight Ghidorah so all the monsters don't destroy us. And my thing is, I have a feeling that you won't see a ton of Godzilla in this movie, but it's going to be made up for by Rodan. You're going to see Mothra. You're going to see King Ghidorah. So then when Godzilla shows up, it's a big deal, and you get really excited because you're seeing Godzilla fight all these monsters with amazing effects and this crazy budget you never thought you would see. And it's not just men in costumes.
That might be fun. Because now they could do it differently, too.
The 90s ones were great. I really like the 90s ones.
Yeah, the 90s ones were fantastic.
That's where I really got pulled into Godzilla as a kid, was watching those on TV. Mm-hmm. And those are great. Even the weird ones like Biolante and like all the other like
it had
strange
its charm,
ones.
but
they
were
have
trying
their charm.
new things.
Yeah.
But my big thing with Godzilla, I always say to him, I don't watch the parts with not Godzilla. When Godzilla's not in it, I don't watch it.
Yeah, it's background noise.
That's very hard to do, to make a movie where you're expecting a particular creature, and it's very. They did it in the first 2 Alien movies, where you saw little glimpses, but you didn't see what the alien actually looked like. But with Godzilla, he's somebody we know already.
Exactly.
So
There's
we
nothing
know
to hide.
Godzilla. So let's see. I want to see the
him.
monster. Yeah.
I completely agree with the Alien was a good example.
Right.
But so that's pretty much it with Godzilla. We
Yeah.
got a couple minutes. I do want to make a big announcement.
Yeah, I
But is
wanna
there
hear
anything
this
else you want to talk monster movie wise? Anything you want to talk about?
I think we covered
The Blob. The Blob.
We covered The Blob. The Blob is a joke, but it happened to be Steve McQueen's first movie.
I like The Blob.
It was an
The
independent.
Blob's fun.
The Blob was an independent movie that I think did better than they expected, and there were those teenage horror films.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they were the drive-in movie. A bunch of teens that age, let's go to a drive-in movie and let's see a monster movie where kids are driving the same cars that we're driving. They dress the same. Steve McQueen was a teenager. And, you know, the bunch of kids just want to have fun, and all of a sudden there's this blob. And having the blob come through the movie theater when people are watching the movie.
Yeah, no, that's fun.
That's great. So
The acting's bad, but that's part of the charm of the
that's
movie.
part of the and it was a drive-in movie, and it began a trend with a lot of movies of kids. They were almost the same movie with different monsters.
Yes. And that's
it.
That's what's fun about it, though. Yeah. Okay, so anything else? Any last moment to talk about Godzilla, the Blob, Frankenstein?
I'll end it with this. Godzilla 2014 was when I saw it in theaters, great experience. Like, it was one of those moments. It was one of those times where everyone in the theaters applauding.
Yes.
And it's so weird to look back at that movie because I don't look at it the same.
Nope,
whatsoever.
not at all.
I look at it as a competent film, and that's it. And
Yeah, no, it's not that.
It's nothing that
Even
special.
when I try to go back to watch the scenes with just Godzilla, it's not that great because of how dark it's shot. It takes away so much.
It's worth only going back because we have a new movie coming out, but I would say skip 2014, seek out Shin Godzilla from Japan.
Yeah, because that was hard to find.
It's a little harder to find. They do have a DVD and Blu-ray release in America.
Yeah,
with
and I remember
with
you
the
saw
dub
it in
version.
2016, but I think it was technically a 2015 film. But look out for Shin Godzilla.
Yeah, check that out and check out the next one coming up. And
Yeah, and we have Godzilla King of the Monsters comes out at the end of next month, and Godzilla vs. King Kong comes out March, I think, of 2020.
that got pushed forward.
So yeah, because they're looking forward to it. So I'm excited to see what happens with
Me
that.
too. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, so that's the end of the show. We do have one big announcement to make. So next week will be our 1-year anniversary of doing Benny TV, but it is going to be the last episode of Benny TV. Next week's the last episode of Benny TV. We are leaving the Strong Island Network. We're still very much involved with Strong Island. I will still be here.
Yes.
In fact, my role here is only expanding and doing more, and I love it here, and I love everyone here. But we want to do different things with the show, and we're rebranding the show as the Rizzuti Show.
Yes.
As the Rizzuti Show. So Benny TV will be ending, but Rizzuti Show will be coming out as a YouTube channel, where me and my dad will both be doing different sketches. I have a lot of video essays that I've been making. I have other sketches I've been making. We have some videos we want to make in a smaller, more condensed, non-live format, which we think suits us a little bit more, but nothing to take away from this place because we love this place.
Oh,
And
I love this studio.
I love this studio, and we're always going to be here. Tomorrow night, I'm going to be on Rudy's Room on Strong Island at 10 o'clock. We love Rudy. Rudy's been on the show.
Yes.
And at the end of the week, I should be on Under the Radar on Sunday to talk Avengers Endgame. So
Cool.
it's a fun week for me here. It's bittersweet because the show is ending, but I will still be involved here at Strong Island. And this show's not ending, it's changing.
It's changing.
It's changing into a different form, into a different show. I'm going to be doing a podcast with my friends Charlie and Zach that have been on the show that we're discussing. I kind of want to do something that molds music and TV and movies. I know Zach's talking on the chat, so...
I have some things I want to do.
You have some stuff we want to do. We're going to bring back an old character, my dad's, Alfredo Gagoots, do some more videos with him. Kyle will be around. He's going to do a Godzilla corner probably. So it's going to be a fun time. It's more stuff that I can do in a different way that's not live. I like doing live, but I think it would be better in this format. Shorter, more 10, 15-minute episodes.
And I'll be guests on a lot of shows.
And we'll
here,
both be
so.
guests on different shows throughout the network. So we'll
Yeah.
still be around. So bittersweet news, but good news.
But good news. It's going to be fun. We have new projects.
We have new projects and new things
We don't
we're
want to
working
spread ourselves too thin.
Exactly. So there's a lot managing here and doing the show, so it works better for me if we do it a different way.
Yeah, for everybody.
So next week, we'll see you next week for the final episode of Benny TV. Kyle, thank you for being on to talk Godzilla with us.
Thank you for having me.
We'll see you next week. Have a good one. See you soon.
Take care, everybody.